Well, have you ever wondered how to make great looking clouds in resin? Well, apparently this is the stuff that does it. Now, I have had this, oh God, I can't think how long I've had this. It must be well over a year. Oh, it feels really weird. But it's all right, it's not sticky or anything like that. And apparently you break bits off it like this, and then you put it in your resin, and it looks like clouds. I'm hoping it works, because I really want some good quality 3D clouds. And I'm going to try and make a little diorama here as well. It doesn't smell of anything, or it's not sticky, it's not anything really. It's just a white cloud-like substance. I think it's going to go an awful, awful long way. And we'll have a look and see what it looks like. I'll put that back in there because I don't want it to dry out. I want to put a little tree in as well, but I think that's going to look too big as a tree. So what I've got is, I've got one of these little trees here, and these are just model trees. And I'm going to cut that little bit off there, like that, and have that as my tree. That's big enough, because I've got two little people as well that are also for model making. So they'll look nice beside that tree. Look at that, it's quite cute. I think I might do a couple of them and have more than one in. Maybe have 3 in. There. So I'm going to have to do this in sections, I think, because I believe this stuff is going to float. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it will. I'm going to try it out in a mould where I'm not making anything with it. I'm going to be using the 4-hour demould by J Diction. Firstly, because I want it to cure up fairly quickly. But secondly, this is actually a thicker resin as well. Because it's more viscous, then things are less likely to move around. So I'm going to mix my resin up, and then we can go from there. I'm quickly degassing this before I pour it in, because I don't want any bubbles in it, because I want to see if this releases bubbles, for one. If it does, then we'll have to live with that. Okay, so I've degassed that now. What I'm going to do is pour some resin in this one first, and then take that little bubble out of that tip that always seems to get caught there. That way we'll have a lovely point. 3/4 of the way full on that. And now I'm going to push this in. I think it is going to float. Oh, definitely going to float. But whether it sucks up the resin and then doesn't float, I don't know. I'm pushing it and getting rid of some of those air bubbles that are inside it first. Hopefully then it will saturate with resin and... No, it's going to float. Definitely going to float. Okay, so we'll put that to one side because I'm not going to use that like that. So what I'm going to do in this one is only pour it as deep as I want those clouds to start with. And that way, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to let that cure up a little bit. I was going to add some of this to it, the blue, and I've forgotten. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it now and then give it a little bit of a swirl round in there. And this is a transparent blue. Hopefully what this is going to do is make it into like a streaky blue sky. Right, and we'll leave that to cure up for about 2 or 3 hours before we do the next stage. What I'm going to do now is prep my people so I can put them in, and I'm going to add a little bit of UV resin to them. So it'll give me something to attach these to and suspend them in the resin. Quickly cure that up. And the trees, what I'm going to do is just add a little dot of resin on the end of them. I'll show you that in a second. All I'm going to do is add a couple of little dots onto the base of these, like that, and cure them up as well. So these are all cured now. What I'm going to do is just trim them up slightly so that they're not quite as wide and they've got more of a flatter end to them. There we go. I can use that now like that on something to suspend over that mould. I don't know how much I need to trim off them yet, because until I pull the mould out when it's cured. So I'm going to quickly prepare my braces or stands or whatever you want to call them for putting these onto to suspend them in the mould. Now I know that that mould is 5 centimeters square, so I'm going to cut a couple that are 4 centimeters in length, and you'll see why in a second. And I'm going to glue those two together just using some white glue, and then glue that onto there like that. There we go. That's that done. I'm going to make one more of those, and then I'll show you why I've made those and how I'm going to be using them. So now this has got sticky, this resin, what I'm doing is I'm going to push some of these clouds right the way down so that I've got different levels. So some are higher and some are lower than the others. Hopefully they're going to stay down. This 4-hour demold has got quite sticky now. I'm going to leave it about another 5 or 10 minutes before I put the rest of it on and let it get really sticky, because that way I'm not hopefully going to get too much of a line happening. There we go. So they're not all at the same level now. We'll let that cure up for a little bit longer. And I've got my trees here. So what I now need to do is connect my trees to this stick. And that's easy to do. All I'm going to be using is a bit of blue tack pushed onto here quite firmly. Pop that on top there, and I know that that is now how high that's going to be. Stick my trees in here using the UV resin like that. And I know that that is going to be an okay depth because I can put that in there. And by adding those two things on, it goes deeper than the edge of this because it gives me then a little rim around the edge to finish off the final part. And I'm going to do exactly the same with these people. I don't want them to go as far in as that with my two ladies who are out walking with each other. Making sure I've got my ladies round the right way. There we are. And they're going to be walking that way. Let's see how sticky that resin is now. And if it's at the gel stage, I can put another layer on. Yeah, I think it is. I think that's ready now for me to put another layer on. And for this next layer, I'm going to be using the Pure Glossy by T Expert. I'm not going to be using the deep pour resin because I don't want it to flash cure. And I think that would be too deep for it. It's a 1-to-1 mixture and it's perfectly fine for something this deep, even though it is like an oven in this room today. So hot, I can't get my gloves on properly. So I've got my resin now ready, and what I'm going to do is pour this in. Now I want to pour this in so it goes just to the level of that clear UV resin that I've put on those sticks, because any higher and then the blue tack or the sticks are going to stick to the resin, and that's the last thing we want. I'm getting up to them now. Yep, that's deep enough. Now this is going to release bubbles as it goes as well, those trees, and that is another reason why I didn't want to put the fast cure in there, because firstly it would have flash cured, but secondly it would trap those bubbles in. Now this resin is thin enough to allow those bubbles to actually come out. If I give it a bit of a shake, they will probably come out anyway. And they'll come up to the top like they are now and then just burst. So what I'm going to do now is leave this to cure up overnight before I then put the final layer on. This is all lovely and cured now, so I can get it ready for the final treatment. All I need to do is pull out my blue tack. And I like to clip off these end bits rather than have them sticking out. You don't need to, but I find it is easier. That way, what you're not going to get is a white stem shining through this next bit. I get them as flush as I can to the resin here. Now, I could go in there with my Dremel and take them right down, but I'm not going to do that. And for this next part, once again, I'm going to be using the 4-hour demold because I want it to be quite thick. I'm not going to need too much. I only want a thin layer over this, because what I'm going to add to it is some of this artificial grass powder that you can get. So it looks like they're walking on grass, hopefully. My resin's all mixed up now, so what I'm going to do is pour some of this artificial grass into here, into this little shot glass, because I don't want too much, but you need to mix up a minimum really of 20 ml of resin to ensure that you've got a good mix and it's going to thoroughly cure. If you mix up too little, you've got a much higher chance then of not having enough part A or part B, and as a result it may not cure. So I always mix up 20 ml at minimum, and then any I've got left over I pour into a mold. And now I can pour this over here, and if there's not enough, then I can mix up a little bit more because I've still got some resin mixed up. I think that's enough. I only want a very thin layer on there. And now I'm going to sprinkle some of this over it like that, and then let that cure up. And then as soon as that's cured up, we can demold it and see what those clouds look like and see what this whole diorama looks like. Well, this is all cured now, and I can't wait to see what it looks like. I love making dioramas. I don't know if it's going to come out, if it's going to be full of bubbles because of them clouds, or what. There we go. That does look like clouds, and they are in different levels because I pushed them through, and you've got a slight bluey tinge there. No real lime because we waited for it to go to the gel stage. I think perhaps one or two less clouds in it may have worked better. But I do like it. They do actually look quite good as clouds. And the trees have come out really well. And as you can see, where I put that clear UV resin, you actually can hardly see that, but that allowed those trees to be suspended in there without any problems whatsoever. I think that's quite cute. What do you think? The grass definitely works well in there. Much better than just painting it green, because you get all those different tones and those little fluffs as well. If you want to check out one of my other dioramas that I've made, then I'll link a video at the end of this one, and it's got loads of tips and tricks in it as well, and hints. Boop that like button, hit that subscribe button, but most of all, enjoy your resin. Take care. Bye.